Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Welcome to the Northwest Augmentative Communication Society's AAC Learning Networks monthly series. And this month we have the topic of assistive technology tools to support comprehensive literacy with Amy Connolly and Sara Ayars, who are joining us from north of Seattle near Bellingham. I'm going to pull up their bios so I can just rave about them. Let's see. Here we go. Let's start with Sara. Sara is a speech language pathologist and assistive technology specialist. She is associated with the Bellevue School District as well as the Bellingham School District. She extends her services statewide through the Special Education Technology Center. Sara has over 16 years of experience in public schools, and she specializes in AAC, or Augmentative Alternative Communication. She addresses the communication needs of students all ages 3 to 21, in diverse educational settings, and collaborates closely with educators. She provides coaching to ensure comprehensive support for her students, and she's dedicated to fostering inclusivity, promoting accessibility, and facilitating meaningful educational experiences. Outside of work, I'll share just a few things. Let's see. She loves spending time with her family and exploring her new hometown, which is Bellingham. And so for those of you who are not familiar with Washington State, you'll have to look up the towns on Google Maps. Moving on to Amy Connolly. She is an assistive technology specialist and occupational therapist in the Bellingham Public Schools. She provides contracted OT/AT services throughout Washington State, also with the Special Education Technology Center. She is also a volunteer with Empower Spinal Cord Injury, Inc., which is a program that provides second chance at rehab for adults with spinal cord injury. She has a special interest in design and fabrication of high and light tech assistive technology and in innovative AT services and interdisciplinary collaboration. So welcome the two of you to begin presenting. And I have just one announcement, which is if you are interested in obtaining a continuing education certificate following this series, if you're watching live, you will get a link in the chat at the end, and you click on that link, you fill out a survey, and we will send you a continuing education certificate. And I think that's all my housekeeping. So thank you so much. Let's get started.
Thank you so much, Marcy. I really appreciate it. We thought we were going to have to introduce ourselves, but you've done the work for us. And Janice, I think you're looking quizzical because I used to be called Amy Fleischer. Do you recognize me? Yes. We knew each other before I changed my name. So it's really nice to see you all tonight. I am so happy to share some work from the Special Education Technology Center. If I can remember how to, okay. So Sara and I both work with the Special Education Technology Center, and they have created these modules, which are open educational resources. So we pulled them down from, excuse me, the OER Commons, and we've adapted them for tonight. So you'll find that our slides are very full of information, and that if you just peel back the layers, you'll also discover videos that support the concepts and lots of links that help you keep going. So we're really here just to share this robust resource, which has, it just perfectly overlaps with our goal tonight of what we want to learn about. So we want to thank the Special Education Technology Center for sharing those resources. It sounds like we're thanking ourselves, but we didn't make them. Okay, so the modules are the first two, let's see, I think it's called Unlocking Literacy. I'm going to jump ahead. Unlocking Literacy modules, and we're going to focus on part 1 and 2. So I'll back up to help orient to our goals tonight. The first part is about the foundational techniques. So establishing a yes/no that's clear and even potentially unaided by any assistive technology. finding a switch site so that students can access devices without, using whatever movements they have. And then partner assisted scanning, which is that strategy, which is also so versatile and not necessarily bound to technology. So those are just the foundational techniques, but we'll then spend most of our time on the universal tools for literacy instruction. As many of you know, if you've been coming to this series of the Learning Network meetings, this book is a fabulous resource, Comprehensive Literacy for All by Drs. Erickson and Copenhaver. It has definitely informed everything that we'll be sharing tonight. And their work at the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies at UNC is fabulous. The Project Core modules, which are also on-demand professional learning modules, are highly recommended, as are the dynamic learning maps. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be referring to the SETC modules. So let's see, probably in your chat, there's a link to slides. So you'll be able to find these modules on your own time. This slide will help you find that. Oh, here we're on to foundational techniques. So I'm going to hand it over to Sara.
Okay, so in the next section of our presentation, as Amy talked about, we're just briefly going to talk about 2 essential techniques or strategies that we consider really crucial for supporting students with complex communication and physical access needs in comprehensive literacy, regardless of whatever tech tool we'll talk about later on. And we do want the focus of tonight to be on those tech tools, so we're going to be pretty brief on these first 2 techniques. And the first of which is establishing a yes and no response. When we say yes and no, this doesn't necessarily mean that we expect our students or our children to say the words yes or no, or to answer yes or no questions. It just means that it's important for our communication partners to know the way that our student communicates a yes or affirmation response or acceptance response, and how they communicate a no or rejection response. And of course, yes, this can be done using words with a device or technology, but it can also be done by interpreting the way that the student or child uses their body posture or their facial expression or gesture. And as is noted on the slide there, if your child only has one gesture, it is important that you communicate to them that you'll interpret a no response, or how you will interpret the no response or no action. So for example, if your student consistently vocalizes to communicate yes, then you can tell them that you're going to interpret their no vocalization to mean no. Or if your student looks to the side to communicate no, then you can tell them that when they do nothing, you'll interpret that to mean a yes response. You can go ahead to the next slide. So on this slide are some examples of how your student might communicate yes or no in various ways. It can be what we call non-symbolic, so it can be in a way that a familiar partner would be able to interpret, so long as partners understand and they can apply meaning to that response. But you can also use technology to shape a more universally recognized gesture, like a head nod for yes or a head shake for no. And there is a link on there. We're not going to play it tonight, but Brenda Del Monte from SETC has a very nice way of using talking buttons, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to shape look up to eventually become a yes and a look to the side to become a no. So it's linked in there for your reference later on. On this side, we have 4 different examples of how different people might say yes or no, and you can shape a student's yes or no, again, using the talking buttons like I just mentioned, or your child might use another modality such as head movements or gestures or facial expressions.
Thanks. So our next foundational technique would be establishing a switch site. And as I came to learn about switches, it was presented very clearly for me. To be functional, a switch site needs to be repeatable, non-fatiguing. You need to be able to get on and off of the switch. And maybe they're using a proximity sensor or an electronic switch, so it's not about getting pressing. It might just be about activating, but that both parts of that task are important. And those switch sites can be really anywhere in the body, and yeah, on the head, or the, not often the hands, because we might need our hands for other things, or we might not use our hands at all that way. But feet obviously can be a switch site. I have a student who uses a proximity sensor right behind her calf. So she lifts her hip, she kind of flexes at her hip and activates that sensor behind her foot. And then after you've determined that part of the body that's non-fatiguing to move, you can evaluate your options among switches. And there are all kinds, the proximity sensor, as I mentioned, or the proximity switch. Often candy corn is what we see in schools, or spec switch can just be a smaller mechanical button switch, and so on. So by being a detective and figuring out what that switch site and that switch type would be, you can be establishing a reliable and consistent switch access method that opens up access to books with peers or independently. So these are some tips from our colleague Heidi about things to consider when you're observing movement. What allows for the most engagement with the lowest cognitive load. That's so important to balance the cognitive aspect and the technical aspects of what you're doing, and what requires the least amount of motor planning and accuracy. And obviously these skills can develop. So it can be a long process, but it can be so amazing when you find that right fit. So partner-assisted scanning, again, briefly, is that third foundational technique, because with that yes, no, you can be presenting a series of options to make selections. So that's where a skilled partner is strategically kind of almost being the computer and presenting things in like a predictable manner, in a kind of neutral manner, so you're not guiding someone towards their preferred answer. So I really like this video that's 10 minutes long. I think it's from like Cincinnati or something. It's an overview of partner-assisted scanning. But I would guess that our group here tonight might be already familiar with these 3 techniques, so we want to jump into those tools now. I'm going to hand it back over to Sara to introduce the tools.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, so now we're going to get to the meat of our presentation tonight, which are these tools that we keep alluding to. And this video here is a video done by Brenda Del Monte with our target book, which is Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. It's a very fun, engaging book for children, and we're going to refer to different examples with using this book throughout our presentation. So the whole video here is linked. It's about 7 minutes long, and we're going to pull out just little clips of it as we talk about various tools. All right, so here we go into our tools. The first one is talking buttons. So these are really basic, just single message buttons. You can record either a single word or a phrase on them. And every time a student hits the switch, it says that recording, that same word or phrase. They're really easy to use. You can use them in lots of different ways. So they're great for things like, I have a question, I want to turn, making errorless comments. And again, what I referred to before as shaping the yes or no is another great way to use these. This is the foundational technique we talked about a little bit ago. And again, that video I mentioned with Brenda earlier is a really great one to show you how to kind of shape those yes and no responses. And these buttons can be used to record a recurring phrase in a book. So if you think about the book, like for example, brown bear, what do you see? You could easily program the button to say, what do you see? Or I see, and so the student could activate the button to participate in the reading of the book as you go along. And on our next slide is an application idea with our target book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. With this, you could program the button to say something like, no, or no, you can't drive the bus, or pigeons don't know how to drive. So just something really fun and engaging. And while you're reading the book, the buttons can be activated at any time. They're, again, pre-recorded, and the comments just allow the students to comment and engage and participate in a really meaningful, errorless way. Also on this slide, there are some other strategies that you can engage with during shared reading, such as letter sequences and features of print and features of sentences and so on. All right. And on this slide is a short video of Brenda from that longer 7-minute video. And she's going to show us how to use these talking buttons while reading our book.
Okay, I'm not sure I shared my sound, so I'm going to redo my share real quick. Hopefully this works.
Hey, can I drive the bus? What do you think? Should we let him drive the bus? We can use our buttons.
No. Yes.
We can use our head with the buttons to say yes or no. You can go around to each kiddo and say, do you think we should let the pigeon drive the bus?
Yes.
You do? How about you?
No.
Let's find out what happens.
All right, thanks, Amy. Just really easy example, kind of showing you quickly there how to use it for yes and no. Moving right along, we're going to give you a whole menu of different tools here. So next we're going to talk about eye gaze frames. Low-tech eye gaze board is a way for students to indicate a selection from a field of choices by holding their eye gaze on one of the words or letters or pictures that is up on the eye gaze frame. And you can make these frames or boards from a foam core board from Michael's, and then you can just cut out the middle so that you can see through it, or you can purchase it pre-made. The black ones are really nice because they offer that high contrast for our students who may be low vision or benefit from high contrast.
Ready?
And you don't have to have everything pre-made and printed and laminated. You can even just like write things on Post-its and put them up on the fly. Just make sure you tell your student what each of the choices are so before they make their selection. And then it's really important too to let your student know what you are observing. So you can say, I like that you looked at all of your choices. Now look at the one you want. Or you could say, it looks like you're looking at monkey. So really giving them that feedback of what you see their eyes doing. And here is an application idea with our book. So in this book, the pigeon is saying what he wants to do and how he feels about what he's doing. So you could have your student use an eye gaze board to communicate maybe how they feel, their emotions, if they're happy or sad or frustrated or mad, or something different. It's always important to put something else or different on there too. Or you could have them talk about what they want to do or what animal should drive the bus, just lots of options there. And then on our next slide here, we're going to watch Brenda again show us how some different ways. I think there are 3 embedded clips here showing us how you can use an eye gaze frame with our book.
If we wrote a different story, what animal do you think would also want to drive the bus? A monkey, a lion, a bird, or a dog? A monkey? Would you let the monkey drive the bus? Should we change the first letter and see what words it makes? Live, dive, 5, hive. Look at all the words you made. Just by changing one letter. We could use higher level eye gaze where they have the access to the whole alphabet.
So real quick there, just lots of brief ideas for you. You can see there's a whole variety between putting, symbols or words or just the letter or the whole alphabet into different quadrants. Lots of ways to use eye gaze frames.
Okay.
All right, our next tool is the little step-by-step. And step-by-step allows you to record a sequence of phrases that you can play in the order that you record it. So it's kind of similar to those single message buttons, but you can record multiple in one order. And some step-by-steps also allow you to record levels. So 3 different sequences of messages as well. And you can also, they are switch adaptable themselves. So you can plug in another switch into the step-by-step. So Amy had talked earlier about those proximity switches. If it's difficult for your student to access the step-by-step, you can plug in a different type of switch to access it. And then there are links here and a video here that can show you how to use it and how to program it, and an example with another really cute book too later if you're interested. So here are 3 quick ideas for how you can use a step-by-step with our pigeon book. You can work on same and different with a game of would you rather. You can also set up a home school connection. I love this idea where you program some messages about the school day and then you can send the step-by-step home and the student can use it with their family. Or a third way of doing it is in a shared reading context, and you can program more of those errorless messages again, so that anytime that you're reading the book at any point during the story, the student could activate the step-by-step and make comments or engage with the shared reading. And here is another video of Brenda using the step-by-step.
On this page, we have a whole bunch of excuses and reasons why we should let the pigeon dread the bus. So I went ahead and recorded the step-by-step, and kids can do a shared reading experience where they're reading a line from the story.
I'll be your best friend. How about I give you $5? What's the big deal? It's just a bus. No fair. I bet your mom would let me. I have dreams, you know? Fine.
Oh, you guys tried. You tried to help out the pigeon and you gave a lot of good reasons.
Brenda's so great. Oops. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Our next tool is an easy hold, or just something that allows a person to grip when, strength might be an issue. And so an easy hold is a silicone band that goes around the back of the hand, and it has these 2 holes, which allows you to insert something like a drumstick or tapping out syllables in words. Or you could get creative with one of these foam, I think they're like hair curlers, to wrap around a stylus or a stick to help hold. This is a nice little video that I don't think we've embedded, so I won't play it, but I do recommend it. It's nice to see a student using it to tap out. Actually, I really like this video format, so give me a moment. Let's see if I can open this. Just redo the share again to see. Okay, one moment.
Should we do super duper? Okay, ready? Here we go. Sue. Come on, honey. Ándale. Purr. Do. Purr. Super duper. How about amazing? Come on, Nana. Ándale. May. Sing. Amazing. Nani. Who's amazing? You gotta say it louder. Who's amazing?
I'm not sure what happened there with the video, but I hope you heard it say, "Who's amazing?" Nani. That's great. Okay, so the application idea, is my screen showing the application idea now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's, to tap out syllables in a word. So pigeon, press to rate, or press. That's not how I parse that, but you know what I mean. Our next tool would be a switch adapted spinner. And this is a spinner that has a port for plugging in a switch. You can do it as a physical object, or you can find a website with a spinner that perhaps is activated by like a space key press or a click, and as long as your switch is going to send that input to your computer, then your spinner could also, you could easily access one that way. And so Brenda had the idea of the eye gaze frame changing the first letter of the word. And it's similar here. You could set up the spinner to have different letters, and you could be working with a word like Gus. And if it lands on a B, you write the word bus. And I think she even showed a pocket chart, which we're going to talk about next. So writing all those words out and really demonstrating print and displaying it that way. So that's one idea for a spinner. Obviously, there are many different applications for that kind of tool. We have a video.
Play around with that word, bus. I wonder what happens if we change the vowel. Remember, the vowel is, let's do this. Let's use our switch adapted spinner and see what it lands on. Bess. Don't let the pigeon drive the bus. What other words can we make if we change the vowel? Look at all the words you guys came up with. Bass, bess, bis, boss, bus.
I love that example because it doesn't have to be a real word. It's just all those different experiences. So pocket charts, as you can see, can be very handy. And they have a special place in my heart because I have a student who is, she's been using one for the last couple of years as a big core board in her classroom. So let's see, I think I have a picture on this next slide. We started with the high contrast core board from Project Core. So she's got the PCS symbols, and the team decided to color code the rows. It's larger. She does have CVI, so these were some efforts to accommodate for that. And really, she accesses it through auditory scanning. She's become a power user with, is it in the purple row, green row, blue row? And she knows, and she'll wait until you get to the word that she's thinking of. And so this example is where she's actually using switches that are embedded in her head array to activate a step-by-step to say, that's the one, or that one, or yes, as a partner scans through the pocket chart. And she, in this example, was writing about science. So she selected some topics. Her teacher asked her yes, no questions. This was like an inquiry project on science. And she selected wheels, ramps, and acceleration as her topic. And using her core board, she selected the words more, not help, want, she. And from there, we talked about how the more ramps there are in the world, then she would not, it's been a few years, I can't remember how we phrased it, like she wouldn't need as many ramps, or she wouldn't need as much help. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Anyway, she just loves writing, and I love how this pocket chart is really in all of her classrooms, but even better would be if we embedded it on a high-tech device that she has with her throughout middle school next year. So we're working on that. So if you were to use a pocket chart with Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, having the blank note cards ready to write those words that are either student selected or created, and then modeling the spelling, and pointing out the different spelling patterns as you create a display. That's the idea there. Now we're on to alternative pencils, which is a huge topic. It could take a whole session, a whole series to talk about all the different types of alternative pencils. I happen to have one right next to me. This is based on the template from the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies. I printed it on, well, I should back up and say an alternative pencil is just anything that provides you access to all 26 letters. And so it can be an eye gaze frame, it can be a flip chart. In the picture here, we have a flip chart where the letters are in rows. I think AE, like starting with vowels. In addition to the letters, we also have some things like turn the page or add a space or finished or let's talk about it. Some helpful supplemental symbols and phrases. And this that I have here is printed on synthetic paper, so it's really durable. And it has the instructions from the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies on the back. So if you make one for your setting, I think it's pretty handy to also include the instructions so that anyone can learn about them and pick them up, use them. Let's see what videos we have here about alternative pencils. Essentially, the process is that someone offers the letters using partner-assisted scanning for the alphabet flip chart, and they'd select the letters they want to use, and you've got a notepad nearby, so you're writing down those letters. And this tool is just so powerful because, as we all know, there's no prerequisites to writing and scribbling, and this is a way to overcome those physical barriers to just getting access to letters and playing with them. So our application idea for don't let the pigeon drive the bus would be to use the alternative pencil to create words, to answer questions, or writing down ideas, to changing into a different version of the story. Or if you were to model the writing process, you might be picking an element of the story and writing Cheetos, for instance, with your alternative pencil. Oh, good. I was hoping we'd have a video. Sarah did the video part, so thank you.
We could also use an alternative pencil, and we could say, what should we name our pigeon? And we could say, does it start with an A, a B, a C? We could use a magic wand to draw the attention to each letter as we go. They can tell me to turn the page or that they're finished. Is it on this one? Yes or no? Yes. Is it this one? Is it this one? F? The pigeon's name starts with F? Let me write that down. You said F. Let's start again. Frank? Once upon a time, there was a pigeon named Frank.
I'm glad Brenda reminded me that, again, you wouldn't necessarily need the switches to make those selections, but just by using the head movements, it's very powerful and simple. And I really am passionate about alternative pencils. I guess, you know, coming as an OT and wanting to overcome those challenges around holding writing utensils, but I feel like I want to be SLP. So thanks for having me here tonight. Just knowing that our communication systems can never contain everything that someone would want to say, and how important it is to teach spelling and provide literacy instruction so that these systems are robust enough. So it's an area that I am always learning more about, alternative pencils. Moving on, we are on to our next tool. I'll hand it over to Sarah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about phonetic keyboards. And before I do, I just want to say I put the link to the alternative pencil website that Amy was alluding to in the chat in case you want to check it out. I love learning and participating in exercises with alternative pencils as well. It does take a really long time. You'll notice the video was sped up quite a bit, but it's a really awesome tool. Okay, so moving on to phonetic keyboards. So a phonetic keyboard is basically a keyboard that is embedded within a voice output system, and the letter that you tap on says the letter sound as opposed to the letter name when it's selected. And this is available in many AAC systems, but not all. Some of them only have keyboards that say letter names. So it's worth looking and seeing which app you're using and if it says the letter sound. And on this slide are some more application ideas. So kind of similar to the last application ideas. You could use a phonetic keyboard to select letters and create words, answer questions, write down ideas, and create a story of your own. And when using a phonetic keyboard, you can demonstrate how long vowels say their name and short vowels make a different sound. You can also model spelling and letter sound correspondence for common consonant digraphs and so on.
Okay, I have the pleasure of talking about switch interfaces, of which there are many types. Basically, the interface is going to translate that switch press or that switch activation into something that a computer can understand. And a common way that occurs is through sending key presses or clicks. So a key press like a space or an enter. And the applicator is a really great switch interface because it's very versatile. You have the 4 channels at the top, which allows you to plug in 4 different switches. To be honest, I don't tend to use more than 2, but you might. And then the modes, that is the actual input that it's sending over. And so those are, you can configure it here. But what the applicator also has, there's 2 more cool features. One is quick media mode, which is where you see that musical note. And that mode takes over the media controls on an iPad. So it's a quick way to make those switch ports turn into like play, pause, stop, skip, that kind of thing. And so that means it works well with like Spotify and Pandora and watching read aloud videos on YouTube. So quick media mode is one of my favorite features there. And then Brenda's feature that she likes to point out is called single shot mode. And that basically is going to ignore repeat presses. So if your student does have a hard time getting off of the switch, that mode just is going to send one input, and it can be a simplifying feature for your student or for the whole experience, because switch access can get complicated for sure on an iPad. So when my student was writing about science, about her wheels, ramps, and acceleration, we actually used an app called Glow Draw to create a custom gesture using recipes and switch control on the iPad. I'm using a lot of lingo, but basically we made an event happen. And that event was to draw this ramp. And so using the applicator to connect her switch to the iPad, she was able to illustrate her writing. Now, some might say that seems like a lot of work for that aspect, but I like to think of it as like expanding, opportunities and experiences related to the topic that she's writing about. Another thing you could be doing with the switch access using that interface would be like iBooks and Tar Heel Reader. That's a website with lots of books that is easily switch controlled. And there's some tutorials here you can refer back to if you plan on using that. Another switch interface is called a hitch. This is a wired interface. I should have said before, the applicator is wireless and Bluetooth, so it comes on along with that need to do some troubleshooting there. But the hitch is a USB wired switch interface, and it also has the different modes that can be configured according to the port that you're using. And what's unique about the hitch is that it sends clicks. Some of them only send key presses. It's handy that you can send a click, like PowerPoint. I've made a PowerPoint that is switch adapted so that a student can self-select books that they want to watch the author read aloud. And that file format required a click. So I wound up seeking out the hitch for that reason. Pretty simple and easy to use though, because it's wired and has the grid on the front. So for Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, you could find that book on Tar Heel Reader. And I also like to use Tar Heel Gameplay, which takes a YouTube video and makes it switch controlled. So you simply find the URL for that video on YouTube and you put it into the Tar Heel Gameplay website and you determine how the switches will work. Will it stop periodically and the student has to press it to engage, or will it say like a keyword or repeating phrase? And you can even get kind of fancy and make it jump to different parts of the video if it's like an interactive question. And the result might be a different point in the video. Our next tool would be dry erase boards and magnetic letters, similar to having those cards available so that you can print and model that writing. A dry erase board is super handy. I like to, when I'm doing writing with a student, shared writing, I like to write the message and then ask them if they want to edit it, if they're happy with how it is, like before we send a message. And so giving that chance to review it. I haven't used magnetic letters a ton, but I do have an anecdote from a teacher who said that upon entering school and getting to play with letters in this form, her students' language just exploded. So that was just an amazing story. Sarah, I don't know if you remember that from the literacy kickoff when we were sharing stories. She just said a student, it just like clicked for him. So I think, it's just another opportunity to engage with letters that can be really handy. So our application idea for Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus would be to read a version of the book and then create your own book, for example, in Tarkiel Reader. And using the whiteboard or the letters, you can be generating ideas, like writing down common words that can be spelled slightly differently, rearranging them. I imagine you'd be able to do something pretty similar on an app. The Making Words app, I think, comes to mind as like a app that's got letters you can float around on the screen. I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Sarah.
Okay, I'm looking at the clock and I think I am going to fly through these next few tools here. I'm sure that many of you in the audience are already familiar with some of these, but we couldn't let a presentation about tools go by without talking a little bit about AAC. So core and fringe boards, core words are those really everyday common words that can be used across a wide range of environments with a variety of communication partners, whereas fringe words are more specific to certain topics. They're usually nouns specific to environments or individuals. But a core board can be printed and used with a student in a classroom all day long in like I said, lots of different contexts, whereas a fringe board can be maybe used in conjunction with a device or something else. And it has those really specific words that might be used for a particular activity or need. Pictures and symbols can be printed on low-tech boards or in a book, like I just talked about. And it allows a student to point to more words in a consistent location. Ideally, they would have a high-tech device or a voice output system alongside this low-tech system that would align with each other. And you can find printable versions of many of our popular AAC devices and apps online as well. There are lots of different AAC apps that you can find on the iPad. Some apps can be accessed by pointing to a picture. Other apps are switch accessible or other alternative access options. And each app has different features and considerations. So working with your SLP is usually a good way to go to determine which app to trial. A dedicated AAC system is a language system that has voice output, but the device is closed or locked to other operations. So again, working with an SLP is probably your best bet in determining the most appropriate system for your student.
And your OT to figure out access methods.
Thank you. Yes. So here's an application idea for use of an AAC system with our book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. You can have your student use their AAC system to tell their own version of the story. And also on this slide are links to pigeon apps, which are really fun and engaging, and you can use those alongside the book to increase motivation and engagement. And here is another video of Brenda showing you a quick example of how you might consider using AAC with our story.
For animals, groups, animals. What do you think might like to drive the bus?
Kangaroo.
A kangaroo. We could also use the device.
I want to drive.
What do you want to drive?
Helicopter.
She's so engaging.
Oh, wish I could just bottle her up, take her around with me all day long.
For and
Okay, so key guards, they are used to improve accuracy for someone who might not be able to use their hands to access their AAC system, or someone who might struggle with accessing certain buttons without activating other buttons. So perhaps when they're trying to use an iPad, they might rest their side of their hand or their palm on the device. Or it could be for a student who needs that extra tactile support to know where the buttons are on the screen. And it is oftentimes a plastic grid that kind of just snaps on or attaches to the device, and it has little holes or openings in it that reveal the symbols that are below. And there's lots of ways nowadays to make the key guards. There's a video here that has options that you can check out later, but they can easily be 3D printed. There's the files for 3D printing available on different websites online, or you can order custom key guards through different websites as well. So we've shown you lots and lots of tools in this presentation so far. So on this slide, we are identifying 8 tools that we suggest that you could consider to get started. And when you have the slides, this links out to another page that takes you to all the different tools so you can see how much they each cost and budget appropriately.
Book Creator is an app that is very engaging to create your own books. You can use all the multimedia tools in the iPad, like the camera, to take pictures of really meaningful things of the students themselves. You can export it into iBooks, but they're really fun graphics. I mean, this is one among many content creation tools. So I mentioned it briefly because it's one that I often just use quickly in a pinch. And then I also wanted to talk about Clicker because that came up at a previous Learning Network meeting, and I've been on a journey with Clicker in Bellingham. We were able to get some grant funding and we purchased licenses, and we've been learning a lot about it. Essentially, it's a suite of child-friendly word processing tools. And what it does, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, it provides you with a kind of, it's like alternative ways to create content. It's a file that goes below your document, and you can design it to be scaffolded to different degrees to create sentences and writing. So there's a sentence set, which would be the most scaffolded to provide you with structure of a sentence. The connect set, which is that orange example, is going to give you more choice in each aspect of the sentence. And then the blue is a word bank. And those are just 3 really common types of Clicker sets. So I'm going to go back again. This is the document that would sit above, and you see it looks a lot like Windows. It's got just a simplified toolbar, and you have like word prediction, lots of audio note options, and different multimedia ways of inserting content. So you could have your student draw using the image insertion. You can like get images from online, but there's a drawing tool. For teachers, it's super handy because there's the analytics lets you know exactly how the student created their work. So you know if it came from the word prediction options, or if it came from that Clicker set below, or if they use the keyboard and they did their own composing that way. So Clicker comes from Cricksoft, and they have a lot of helpful tools on their website enabling you to learn about the software. The introductory webinar is not really a webinar. It's more like really short videos about Clicker. So that's a nice way to learn about it. And I'm noticing I don't have the link here, but if you click around, you'll see Clicker Tour on their website. And that tour also gives you a nice brief like demonstration of the features. And if you're going deeper into certain aspects of literacy, the Clicker Basics website is really handy because it is presented to you in functional ways. So you're like, I want to work on this skill. What's the feature of Clicker that could help me work on that skill? So as I mentioned, I've been doing some shared writing with a middle school student, and we created a connect set so that she's got choices within parts of the sentence, and each page supports like one sentence. You can navigate to the next one for the next part of her message. So this is just a this is not what she would see all at once, but it just gives you the overview of like what this clicker set looked like, and it enabled her to compose a message to her brother, which was so sweet. She was writing notes of gratitude around Thanksgiving, and we could easily highlight all the text and have the computer read it back to her to see if she was happy with it. I didn't include it in this presentation, but I'm now using Grid for this purpose, Grid 3. So Clicker, I think, has a lot of strength in that it has settings for alternative access. But I found out that I just needed a little bit more specific settings that I found in Grid 3 from Smartbox. So my learning. Okay, in the interest of time, wow, it really went by quick. We didn't leave much time for questions. SETC has a lending library. Be sure to check it out if you're looking for something and it's not available where you live. And we also have an incredible collection called the Comprehensive Literacy for All book collection. I know that Sari and Barb were also part of this series, so hopefully you've already heard about this, but basically on the Special Education and Technology Center's website, you can find, I think it's at 200 books now, these activity planning sheets that are offering suggestions for different purposes of each engagement with the book and related supports. Okay, here we are at the end. Thank you so much for having us. It's really great to be here tonight, and we're happy to hear any comments or questions. I wish that we had more time for sharing amongst the group.
Thank you so much. Do you want to stop share?
Yes.
Wonderful. And I will stop recording.